Hey, Lewis, how are you?
Well, Dan, how are you?
Excellent, excellent. We have got a whole bunch of new Patreon supporters this week. I want to give them a big shout out. James Smith, who is a fellow board member at FBI Radio with me. We started where we started A Rational Fear. Thank you, James. Ben Gittins, Rob Bartlett, and Lewis. Next week marks the first anniversary of us starting our Patreon, we started with the goal of being able to pay for our editor, we've done, which is great. Now I'd like to see if we can get enough patrons to pay for a holiday. No, to pay for drugs. No. To pay for a video producer to help us make videos with us. So if you are into what we do, please chip in on the Patreon. You may remember back in 2014, we ran a possible campaign and we raised $50,000 to make 13 weeks of digital video content during the election. And we spent every single cent of that.
It was great. It's the first time I've ever had a chance to go bankrupt. It was a thrill for me.
It was like, well, we've got this money. We need to spend it on making content on the internet. That's a good investment. Well, it's election season coming up, and it would be great to do the same. But, video is way more expensive than audio. So if you've thought about becoming a Patreon supporter, now's a good time to chip in for as little as you like, $1 or $3. We have some guy paying us $500 a month, which is ridiculous. Big thanks to David O'Connor for that. All right. Are you ready to start the show, Lewis?
I'm ready, Dan.
I'm recording my end of A Rational Fear on Gadigal land of the Eora Nation. Sovereignty was never ceded. We need a treaty. Let's start the show. Tonight, as an independent, Craig Kelly says he will vote on his conscience. However, Kelly understands the word conscience means con-science. And the 1st of April will see JobKeeper increase by just $25 a week. Scott Morrison hopes everyone on the program will enjoy his April Fool's Day joke. And at an International Women's Day event, Scott Morrison reflects on bungling the biggest scandal to come out of Canberra as a husband and as a father. It's the 26th of February, 2021. We've struck a deal with Facebook. This is A Rational Fear. Welcome to A Rational Fear. I'm your host, disgraced former elite athlete, Dan Ilic. And joining us tonight are some incredible fearmongers. He grew a comb over in order to foster a look that's former scout leader, but instead of cutting it off, he settled for a look that says reformed murderer. It's the co-creator of Ronnie Chang's international student and co-host of The Sweetest Plum, Declan Fay. Thanks for joining us.
I'm very sad. If I had known you were going to mention it, I would have kept it. It's gone. I had a comb over. When people went a bit strange during the lockdown, when Melbourne hit that second lockdown, I thought I need to set a goal for myself. And I set a goal to grow a comb over. And it's really hard to get it to get all the way across. And
my uncle has a comb over, and you look just like my uncle.
Well, the combination of a lockdown, not much natural light, plus the comb over had started to make me look like a very ill old man. And then my partner said to me at one stage, she said, I'm concerned this is having an adverse effect on our relationship. So I decided it had to be shaved. It's gone.
And our next guest has over 2.5 million likes on TikTok. We can't wait to ask her, what is TikTok? You may know her as How to Delete One. For the purpose of us boomers here on the podcast, we'll call her Emily Johnson. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Now, what is it like to be one of the most influential people on TikTok in Australia?
I mean, I don't think I'm influential. I think I'm just the anti-troll of TikTok.
Oh, an anti-troll. You're the bridge, bringing people together.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think it's worth it. I think that's a valid job. And finally, it's a man who is yet to receive his free Kia. It's Lewis Hobba.
Honestly, I wake up every morning, I run downstairs like a kid at Christmas, and I say, Kia today. And still no Kia. I mean, frankly, if Hamish Blake can't get me a Kia, who can?
I emailed Hamish Blake throughout the week and I said, thanks for doing the show. Sadly, Kia didn't give us any Kias. And he said, oh, that's interesting. They sent me 3. So
have you noticed Kias have it's going to be harder for you to get one because Kias have tried to go cool. That they used to be the dorky family car that the guy would be like, look, if you can't afford a kind of Toyota, maybe do you want to see the Kia? And he'd say it like kind of like, he was showing you a dirty nappy. But during the Australian Open, they're all kind of really cool, and the ads are like they're all doing like spins and kind of burnouts. They've tried to rebrand them.
That's me. I'm a bad boy. I'm the bad boy of family wagons, you know? I'd be the perfect influencer for Kia. I'm not very rich. I'm dangerous. I break down emotionally. I'm just like a Kia.
You're a guy that says I could do burnouts with 6 kids in the car. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Coming on the podcast, we talk with the creative director of one of Israel's longest-running progressive parties, and we'll ask him, what's it like to know you're going to lose another election? But first, here's a message from our sponsor.
This episode of Irrational Fear is brought to you by Michaelia Cash's Dob in a Dole Bludger hotline. If you know someone who is earning hard-earned money from taxpayers and is refusing to do their job, just call 1-800-DOLE-BLUDGER.
Michaelia Cash's Dole Bludger hotline.
Yeah, hi. I saw a man taking taxpayers' money and completely refusing to do any work.
Yes, do you have his name and job?
Yes, his name is Scott Morrison. He's the Prime Minister. He just gives all the jobs to the state premiers to do. It is so unfair. Someone who actually wants the job could be doing the job heaps better.
Right, and what's your name?
My name, Anthony Albert Sneezy.
1-800-DOLE-BLUDGER, because there's nothing more Australian than dobbing in your mates.
Well, First Fear, it is sponsor related, but it's not exactly sponsored content. The government has announced this week they're going to be goddamn heroes and increase the job seeker payment by $3.60 a day. Oh, good on. That's almost a cup of coffee in a capital city. The government is also establishing a hotline to dob in unemployed Australians who refuse job offers. Now, this does not bode well for me. I had perfectly good reasons not to go on Celebrity Big Brother in 2012. I just don't want to have to explain it to my mum and Centrelink. Fearmongers, have you ever had a job offered to you that you didn't want to take? Deck?
Oh, I mean, I work in the entertainment industry, so every job I've had to take along the way, I didn't want to take at some stage. I've done numerous jobs I didn't want to take. Anytime somebody rings, you know what the big job is? It's not actually like a company offering it to you. It's when your mate rings and said, could you just help me for a few hours tomorrow, move house? And you know that few hours is, that's stretching into 6, 7, 8. We're going into 12 hours. It's akin to, can you pick me up from the airport? It's the 2 greatest pressures you can ever put on a friendship.
That's actually a great, mate for the doll would be a great scheme. You set up all those jobs, put them on a list. So, like, pick me up from the airport, help me move house. I need someone to help me move a fridge. Any of those things. Can you pick up a 6-pack for the party and just farm them out to doll workers?
It's actually perfect because this government is obsessed with those kind of Aussie mateship things. So if they put in a thing where you suddenly get extra on your dole, like work for your mate on the dole, people would absolutely love that. Like, you could imagine Scott Morrison just coming over that.
Have you ever had to take a job you didn't want to take?
Yes, I did. After uni, I was in a job network, and they got me to work at Coles. It didn't last very long. I remember I was in the deli. I'd actually boxed myself in the deep freezer with a forklift, and I kind of stood there and I was like, it's time to leave. Yeah.
So, were you driving the forklift?
It was one of those, it's not, I don't even know what it's called. It's like a pallet jack, but it's like mechanic. Yeah. It had controls to move it around, and I'd maneuvered myself into a corner.
I worked at Franklin's, which is another supermarket of a bygone era, and I remember being so driven to tears after every shift. Like, if my boss dobbed on me for not turning up to work through this phone call, I don't know what I'd say. What do I explain to Centrelink? That it was crushing my soul and I didn't want to do it anymore? Can I please have $3.60 extra a day?
A lot of my uni work was at as a waiter at a lot of Italian restaurants in Melbourne, and the rumors are true. The people who run them, they like having a cash business for whatever reason. You know what I mean? If I had have dobbed on them, I'd be in the ground. Like, I'd be wearing concrete boots if you dob on a Melbourne restaurateur.
Swim with the fishes.
Yeah.
Well, ACTU President Michelle O'Neill, among other things, and among other people, ACTU President Michelle O'Neill, among other people, are really concerned that this could be open to exploitation. Folks, can you see how this dob and a doll bludger could be exploited for your?
Yeah, because I mean, the government have been so fantastic at handling any kind of administration or bureaucracy of people that are on Centrelink. I can't see this going wrong at all. Like, don't you think that after robo-debt, after kind of multiple inquiries into this, after all the stuff that happened with that, wouldn't you just stay away from any kind of administering this?
Well, maybe robo-debt, that's their new job. Maybe robo-debt is on to the dole phone call now. So they've been repurposed because every robot needs a job. Instead, when you call up, you actually have to talk to Alexa to dob in a doll.
This isn't so much a joke, but I did when it's on the same day that they announced it, and they had that thing that you just said, that robots it's Centrelink to employ robots to check on admin or doll bludgers, and it was the same day that Daft Punk retired, and I thought that is a very odd career trajectory for Daft Punk.
Yeah, mate, I just want to dob on my worker. He quit because he couldn't stack harder, faster, taller.
Oh, very good. Very, very good.
What other hotlines do you think this government should actually invest in? Maybe a mishandle a scandal hotline. Press 1 to reflect on an issue like a father. Press 2 to reflect on an issue like a husband. Press 3 to reflect on a scandal like a Sharkies fan.
You get any of the politicians to answer it, and it could be like an anti-phone sex line. Like, anytime you're horny and you want to make sure you're not horny, you just call like the government and just immediately, this is a huge boner killer. You're just like, oh God, yeah. All right, good, I'll go home.
One politician I've been listening to, the ex-politician rather, I've been listening to his podcast recently. I've actually started to get jollies out of. I really enjoyed listening to Christopher Pine's podcast, Pine Time. And I thought,
don't. You've gone too deep in the matrix, mate. If that's
that would be great as a person to call. Like, employ Christopher Pine to run that hotline. That'd be exciting. Anyway, I'm just going to do a hard pivot here. All right, this week's second fear, which is. Sorry, here we go. This week's second fear. Facebook looks like it's bringing news back to the platform, which is a complete shock to de-radicalized boomers who are just adjusting to reading to the news on the printed page again. I don't know about you, but I've actually felt better. In the case of my Facebook feed, no news is great news. My friends from school have kind of stopped posting about Pauline Hanson and instead posting about gardening, and that is a net win for me. Now, if you are confused as to what this whole thing is all about, what is going on here, the winners and the losers, we've got a bit of an explainer on how the media bargaining code works, put together by one of the friends of the podcast.
So why isn't there any news on your Facebook news feed? Here's a quick explainer by me, Rupert Murdoch, Lieutenant General of the News Corp and Assorted Expeditionary Forces. Now, Mark Zuckerberg owns a website, Facebook's, and Google owns a website called Google's, and their websites own the data of all Australians who use them, which means they know what you want before you do. They're really good at selling advertising. I own newspapers that are really bad at selling advertising, and those newspapers own the Australian government, and the Australian government makes laws. So one day, on a whim, I thought, geez Louise, we're bad at selling ads. Not everyone wants 60-month interest-free deals for electrical, computers, furniture, bedding and flooring from Harvey Norman. Some people want magnetic lashes, leggings that make your bum pop and other bullshit. We have no idea. But then I said to myself, Rupert, you own a perfectly good government. It's just sitting there doing nothing. Maybe you can get them to force the blokes with the websites that are good at selling ads to give us money. Then I called the government to my house, by private jet, made them pay for it. And I said, hello, government man. I forget their names. I've had a lot of staff turnover lately. If you still enjoy being the government, can you do this? And they said, we do still enjoy being the government boss, yes. And yes, we can do that. Now, the websites that are good at selling ads have to, by law, give me money. And the best part about it, Google's and Facebook's give the money straight to me, tax-free. And we wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, why start paying tax now? Some journalists would say, but there's no way to guarantee that money will be invested in new journalism. Well, none of those journalists work for me. I don't hire journalists. Oh, and news is coming back to your Facebook feeds very soon. Mark said to the government he only wants to pay us money if he feels like it. Well, I respect that. At the end of the day, Facebook, Google, and I all agree that we're not going to pay any money to the Australian government.
Oh, sorry. Anyway.
Well, I think that was Mark Zuckerberg cutting him off there midway.
Yeah. I was trying to do another thing at once. Anyway, so how do you folks feel about this? Emily, how do you feel about news coming back to your Facebook feed?
I'm ecstatic. I was devastated when it was all gone.
What?
Because it's a part of what I do, like shuffling through the comment section for that perfect, like, bigoted bogan from Queensland going off about, kick him out if you don't like it, leave. And I'm like, this is gold for me.
So it actually fuels your work. You're missing it because the comments actually are fuel for your creative oeuvre.
Yeah, and I mean, people like to turn a blind eye and say that Australia is so progressive, this and that. And it's like, take a look at the comment section on Facebook. That's Australia right there.
You're warming your hands on just the garbage fire of democracy.
Yeah, I love it. Bring it back.
I haven't missed it. I mean, literally the only person I know who posts on Facebook is Dan. I don't have a single. If I open Facebook, it's just 10 posts from Dan. So really, it's the same as just getting a text from Dan. I haven't missed it.
It was very peaceful for a few days. Like, a kind of, that eerie feeling when you're at school and you were like year 9 and year 10 and the senior kids were away for some reason. And it's like there's this kind of eerie calm that hangs over everything, and it can't last. Your place in the pecking order. Your mum is going to start tagging you in sort of cute cat photos from 10 years ago all over again. It was this, I really liked it. I'm very, I won't be going back there. I don't need to see that bin fire for a while.
But there are Emily, there are so many other platforms you can harvest comments from. What is it about Facebook comments that you can't get?
I think it's because the audience on there. I'm not trying to bag on people, but it's like the common people, or like, you know what I mean? Like everyone's like random uncle or whoever that has an iPad logs onto his Facebook. You know what I mean? Like that's their source of information as well. So they're not exposed to other media, so they just eat it up.
Yeah, and in 2016 when I hitchhiked from Hobart to Ilic Beach for the election, I interviewed people in the car on the way, and I have to say people at the top of the country and the bottom of the country were all heavily into Facebook and all got their information, their news from Pauline Hanson's Facebook page. She was the main purveyor of information for them. Like they don't follow any other news service. They followed Pauline Hanson to get their news. And it's like, it's so strange. Like this is such a force. It would be such a shame to have that back. Facebook has been renowned for destroying democracies around the world. Can't they just do something right, protect our democracy, shut themselves down for the good of the country?
When everyone did start going down, it was a bit of a there was like a sense of popularity contest as well. Like the people who got taken down were important, and if you remained, you were a loser. Like if you had a Facebook page that purported to do news, and you were allowed to, like, what that said is you don't matter. No one is invested in you. No one is listening to you. It was interesting to kind of see people go, oh, I guess I'm still up. I guess I'm irrelevant.
It's the equivalent of the podcast that I do. We a couple of times have been worried about defamation just because of things you say at the spur of the moment. And I asked my partner, who is a lawyer and who has worked in defamation law, she would listen to it. And I'd say, what do you think? Is this defamation? And she'd say, technically it is, but people will need to prove a large reputational damage, and there's no way that your podcast qualifies as that.
Burn.
Yeah, like a legal burn from a partner is devastating. You're like, I object.
There's no way to come back from it. It's equal parts relief and equal parts of devastation.
I really loved the week before the Facebook ban on Facebook, the top 10 posts that were getting the most engagement, top 10 overperforming posts were 7 News, ABC, Batuta, SBS, The Chaser, ABC News, and 7 News. And then the next week, the top 10 posts were Batuta, The Chaser, Batuta, Penrith Panthers, Batuta.
Very Sydney-centric.
I really enjoyed that Australians were getting like most of their news from satirical comedy websites. That filled me with joy.
What was the Penrith post?
I don't know. People like sport, I guess.
Was there a sighting of the panther?
The panther, yeah, the panther. Well, 20% of Australia lives in Western Sydney, so they hold sway on Facebook. Yeah, cool. Hang on a second. That's great. All right, cool. Third fear for the week. All right. Opposition leader Zach Kirkup has done a candid interview with the West Australian in the lead up to the Western Australian election, basically conceding the election 2 weeks out before the election date. This is the headline splashed across the West Australian today. I accept 2020 is not my time, which is what I say to myself after I've pitched Irrational Fear to every TV network in the country this year. So, fearmongers, what do you think of this strategy, Lewis, to come out there and say, basically, I'm going to lose in a couple of weeks?
Well, every politician does this in every election. It's just that this is the only time you believe it. Like the Australians love the underdog. So before every election, everyone is kind of going, no, I guarantee I'm going to lose. It's the opposite to every country. And it's one of my favorite things about Australian democracy. No one wants you to believe in them. And we shouldn't. And then eventually they disappoint us. And we're like, well, we shouldn't have believed in you to begin with. But this is the first time someone has said, I don't think this is my year. And you're like, well, no one does.
Emily, would you vote for Zach with a phrase like this?
I think it is. It's good. Like it's reverse psychology. Like being like, I'm not going to win. Oh, like you should pity me. Pity vote me.
Yeah, it's like the person who studies heaps in year 12 and then goes, I haven't studied. And so when they do incredibly in the exam, they're like, oh, did I do well? Oh, I don't know. I didn't even try.
I did find it interesting. I mean, my two thoughts on this was, one is that I follow politics. I'm pretty deep in politics. I've gone down some dark political rabbit holes on social media.
You listen to Christopher Pine's podcast.
That's right. I didn't know that the opposition leader in Western Australia was called Zach Kirkup until you sent me this article, Dan. I swear to God. And no one's going to win with the name Zach Kirkup. It sounds like the kind of noise you make when you're choking on something.
Yeah, the most famous West Australian should really run for this job. Hot dogs should be running for the Liberals. Hot dogs could get people's votes.
Election up late.
I mean, it takes the pressure off, that's for sure. I mean, everything's kind of a nice surprise. Oh, we gained a seat. Not bad. You remember when I said it wasn't our time? But look, we did better than we thought. The current status is Labor has got 40 seats. Liberals have got 13. So Labor is pretty much entrenched. There's absolutely no way they're going to move that. He said this on a podcast earlier today. I'm throwing myself on the barbed wire so I can get as many of them across the fence as possible. That's
wild.
Why is he even running? Why is Zach Kirkup even running?
It sounds like he's kind of. It sounds like he's actually kind of getting off on it in a way. He's getting a kind of mild sexual thrill over how badly he's going to lose.
I'm bad. Tell me I'm a bad politician. Also sounds like he just watched Gallipoli. Like, what a weird turn of phrase. Just hurling himself a barbed wire. It's gross.
Oh, it's terrible. Hang on. Let me just pull up the video for. Hang on a second. All right, here we go. Oh no, I can't share it. Hang on a sec. Sorry, let me just. I'll plug it into the player, and we can just talk about it after we play.
So hello to everyone watching the live stream.
I was going to say, is this? I didn't know until the start of this that it was live streamed, so I haven't prepared my serious barrel down the camera while we wait for Dan's computer to work face.
Yeah, here we go. All right, there was one great clip I wanted to share with you this week. I'm going to play it and let's have a talk about it as soon as. One great clip of the week I just want to play for you now. It is a woman getting the first ever vaccine, COVID-19 vaccine, sitting next to Scott Morrison. We'll play it and we'll talk about it immediately after.
Ready for vaccine?
Yeah. All right. That's great. Like that.
Very good. Always front. Always front.
Can we get the bottle?
I just love that. So the woman, Scott Morrison asks her to do V for vaccine. He does the peace sign. She tries to do the peace sign and then moves her hand around to do the up yours sign. Then he immediately grabs her and tries to stop her from doing anything for the cameras. Long after, it's far too late for those images to go viral. This is what an incredible image for this week. That was the most perfect bit of vision.
The only way that would have got shared more was if he had have grabbed her even a tiny bit harder and she had have actually died as he grabbed her. Can you imagine? That's what I thought. She's quite frail. She's just had an injection. Everybody knows you don't want anybody within kind of 10 meters of you when you've had an injection. And he just wraps her up. Because she looks quite frail and her fingers are quite sort of, she's quite old. And I really worried for how she felt after he grabbed her.
This is a really interesting moment this week because all the leaders of the major parties were all meant to get their vaccine at the same time the day after this. So what Scott Morrison did was he called a press conference the day before everyone was meant to get it together just so that he could be the first. He actually staged this entire moment. And now in a week where, 3 Liberal staffers are accusing somebody of sexual assault. Do you think this is a good look for a Prime Minister to be grabbing an old lady, Emily?
No way. I mean, and the thing is, it was the horse had already bolted, and now you just look like a total, aggressive creeper. And he's always grabbing people's hands. He can't stop grabbing people's hands. He's done it twice now.
That is so true. I totally forgot about the bushfires.
With the bushfires, and that lady was
to shake his hand, and everyone had this aversion to Scott Morrison, and he's really forcing himself upon the electorate in a very literal way.
The other part of that story, to put into context why he was looking so confused at this, that he was grabbing her hands, is she did a follow-up interview later on in the day, and they were like, they said, "How was it to get your injection with the Prime Minister?" And she said, "Oh, the Prime Minister wasn't there." And then they said, "No, the man next to you was the Prime Minister." And she went, "Oh, right. Well, I didn't realize that. They said he was going to be around, but I didn't know who he was." And so she had no idea who the strange man grabbing her hand was.
But yeah, who did she think he was then in that moment?
Yeah.
In her defense, she still thinks the Prime Minister is Robert Menzies. So it's it's probably okay for her. All right, Omri, are you there, Omri?
Yes, I am.
All right, great. Here we go. We'll kick it off with you now.
Unfortunately, I don't have my camera on, but
That's okay. No worries. Joining us now is the creative director of Meretz, one of Israel's most left parties, and he's kind of only a few weeks out from election. So we thought we'd take the moment to try to understand what is Israeli politics all about. Omri Marcus, thanks for joining us on Irrational Fear.
Oh, sorry, I thought that you will explain to me what all Israeli politics is all about. For the last 10 years.
Well, we were hoping that you could tell us, Australian comedy podcasters in less than a sentence, how does Israeli politics work?
Well, it's not that much of a different from your system. It's also a coalition that is based on a couple of parties that are building a coalition, and they are choosing the prime minister. But it's not working that well in Israel. So for the last 2 years, we've been going to vote 4 times. This is going to be the 4th round of elections in less than 2 years.
Wow, you have more elections than we have prime ministers. That's incredible.
I know. And the problem, we are also similar in the fact how impotent our labor parties are. We are actually not, Meretz is not one of the leading left-wing parties in Israel. We are the only labor party in Israel. And which is kind of like, it's a pity where there are around 16 or 17 parties, we are the only left-wing liberal party. It's a dying species. It's us and the dinosaurs.
So how do you try to cut through to kind of change people's minds on politics in a place like Israel?
Well, listen, the only way we can win is if they will switch the system from voting into raffle. So we need to come up with very
you must be an inspiration to your followers, Omri. You're more of an inspiration than the state opposition leader in WA, who said he's not going to win and no one should vote for him.
Yeah, I'm thinking that maybe there is kind of like a world pandemic that is happening to labor parties, that it's kind of like they feel like it's not their year, even though, everything is collapsed, and still they are not able to show that they are the alternative. But, since so limited resources, we need to think outside of the box of how you can stand out among, 17 other parties out there. And we came up with a lot. We are mostly working on using free media. So we are creating a lot of stunts and gimmicks, so we will be noticed. Our first campaign was about, we put a campaign on Tinder, where 80 of our supporters switched their profile pictures into our slogan, which is, "You can count on us, we won't run away the morning after." And you remember you swipe right and you regret it. That's kind of like slogans. And then we did a nice thing where we put on Amazon boxes of people where they used to get their boxes. We put a nice sticker of us saying, "You know what you are getting with us." So everybody that got their Amazon package got it with a sticker of us on it saying, "You know what you are getting, Meretz." Last week we did something very nice. We put on the billboard on the main highway in Israel, we put a picture of the Minister of Education with his mobile phone number, with his actual mobile phone number, saying, he's so proud about what he was doing, this failing clown. Give him a call, tell him what you think about his work.
And did you hear from him if he got any calls?
He tried to call us, but his line was busy most of the
time. Omri, can I ask you honestly, what is your? Obviously, it's very funny what you're saying, and there's obviously a strong element of truth to what you're saying about your party and your role in the politics of the area. But what is the aim for your party? Like when you get to this 4th election day in 2 years, what will you be happy with the result?
Well, there is a bar that underneath it, we won't get into the parliament, which is 4 seats. And if we will get into the parliament, that would be a huge victory for me. It's very pity for me to say, because, we are supposed to be much more dominant, but it is very Middle Asian times. and a very dark era. And we are hoping at least to get into the parliament in order to show the alternative.
Omri, what are the what's the main issue, do you think, that you wish your party could could connect with? Like in Australia, for instance, like climate change is a baffling one. All centre parties, all right parties, everyone, no one wants to do anything about climate change. The only people who want to do it are the sort of further left parties. What's that sort of issue for you?
Well, I know where we are standing about climate change, but this is because we are the only party that actually published a political platform with our ideas. So I can't really tell you in comparison. The topics, it's a fourth round of election, so I don't really expect to change anyone's mind. It's very, identity politics is very dominant, and people knows exactly what they are in favor of, and everybody's mind is very set. So my goal right now is just to keep my audience motivated and to try and bite the other sides on painful places, so they would to kind of like to get some new audiences, but it's going to be marginal, the amount of new audiences that we will get.
Have you thought about red hats with the text "Make Israel Reasonable Again"?
Oh, yeah. Funny you are asking, but we did open a merchandising store with products, because our goal is to do something very emotional. So we did nice socks with the one of them is written on it left, and on the other one is written not left. And we did a condom with our logo on it saying "You will feel us for sure," and we did an umbrella saying "This is not rain what you are having." All kinds of things like that. Or we did a scarf with the term on it, "We will keep your voice," which is a pun in Israel for actually this. You'll get it. We need always to kind of like to come up with more and more stuff. Oh, yesterday the government decided to open all the shopping malls, but they kept the schools closed. So we did a lesson in a shopping mall. We brought a class of kids to get to get a class in the shopping mall, which was a very nice stunt. And
how does it feel to know that there's a whole political party looking to you to come up with ideas so that that they can get into parliament? How do you feel about that?
It's hard. Actually, it's quite. I would prefer to discuss serious topics in depth and to have serious discussions, but it's became such a circus that you kind of like you need to stand out. By the way, you should check out our Zoom call advertisement of cats, because obviously left-wing liberals, they love cats. So we did a Zoom call of cats trying to explain why you should vote for our party. And I'm quite depressed because I would really like to have a serious political issues on the table and have a discussion about it. But unfortunately, that's not the situation.
Omri, I've never heard of a political party having a creative director. What's your background? Where were you before you were with this party?
Well, I'm the creative director for the campaign. I'm not the creative director of the party, but it's a double campaign for me. It's my first one and my last one. I'm a comedy writer in my background, but I'm doing many other stuff like developing TV formats all around the world, in dating shows in China and game shows in India. And I'm doing a lot of projects with a very dominant Australian comedian named Dan Ilic, which I've heard is very popular down under.
I'm so popular. We've got 10 people viewing the live stream right now. 10 people have chosen to tune in to this conversation.
Yeah, no, you can tell them about the crazy shit that we've done together, like Trump impersonators, a conference in South by, or the other stuff that we did, or Rose to the United States that we did with the writers of The Simpsons and Family Guy, and some other crazy stuff. It's part of our comedy writers.
Omri is this magical convener of comedians in a global space. Omri invited me to this conference in New York City when I was working in America. And I said, oh, yeah, I'll prepare a little presentation about comedy and how comedy can change people's minds and blah, blah, blah. I've got that presentation. I do it lots of different places. I'll probably go present it to 200 people, get a sandwich and go home. And I turned up and it wasn't 200 people. It was 30 people in this boardroom. And those 30 people were the presenters and showrunners of every Tonight Show around the world that was very similar, like John Oliver. And I was like, holy shit, this isn't like some jerks turning up to hear somebody talk about comedy. This is like the power players of comedy. I was completely blown away. And I was like, what the fuck am I doing in this room?
Dan, there's a reason he didn't tell you that it was going to be all those people from all those popular comedy news shows, because your brain would have exploded and you would have had a small stroke beforehand. So it was actually in your best interest and your welfare not to tell you beforehand.
Did you get the sandwich though, Dan?
We did have some lovely sandwiches. Thank you, Omri, for that.
Hey, Omri, can I ask? Our Labor, you've talked about the problems of Labor parties across the world. Our Labor Party here, our federal Labor Party, suffers from a few issues with its image and with a lack of sense of humor about itself and a bunch of other things. What do we have to pay you to come out here and sort out the promotion of the Australian Labor Party?
Wow. Since you are on the other side of the world and right now to jump on a plane, that would be the challenge. But I think if you have Dan, I think Dan knows everything that I know. And he's one of the most creative people that I know. As the head of the fan club of Dan in Israel, I think they can use services.
Okay, Omri, so now I'm working this out. So we don't have a picture of you here. We just have a graphic. Are you sure you're not Dan Ilic doing an accent with a recording of his voice just praising him across a 12-minute interview?
Well, I can confirm, no deny.
I think we should wrap it up there. That is it for Rational Fear. Big thank you to all of our guests. Thank you, Omri Marcus from Israel, Emily Johnson from TikTok, Lewis Hobba from, where are you from, Lewis?
The radio.
Declan Fay from Podcast Renowned. Do you guys have anything to plug? Declan, would you like to plug anything?
No, well, yeah. I mean, every white guy says this every day, every few minutes, but please listen to my podcast. It's called The Sweetest Plum. Or if you like fiction podcasts, I wrote one last year called Crossbred about a Christian hip hop group that kind of blows up. Have a listen to that. I like that. It's my favorite thing that I've written.
It's a really fun, excellent narrative comedy podcast. Emily Johnson, what would you like to plug?
I mean, I guess you can follow me on TikTok if you have TikTok. How do I delete one? I'm always responding to filthy racist comments with skits or something hilarious, hopefully.
And Omri, what would you like to plug?
Well, okay, vote for Meretz. Oh, and I want to say to my family in Australia that we are waiting for you over here. The Givoni family in Melbourne.
Well, you're going to have to wait till they get the vaccine, and then I'm sure they'll fly over. Lewis Hobba, you got anything to plug?
I feel like I should plug my radio show since you forgot what I do every day. It's on Triple J. It's called Hobba and Hing. You can follow us on Instagram at @NotHobba and Hing Official. Dan, if you'd ever like to listen, that's where I am when I'm not here.
I did. It's marvelous. Thank you to Road Mikes, the Bertha Foundation, Jake and Round on the Teppanyaki timeline. This episode of Rational Fear has bits and pieces contributed by Rupert Degas, Bronwyn Morgan, Killian David, Amanda Buckley, Ads, Pete Lawler, Sheepy, and everyone else in our Discord server. Until next week, there's always something to be scared of. Good night. Thanks very much, Omri.
It's a pleasure. Bye, guys.
That's great.
Thanks, Emily Johnson. You were a delight.
Good luck with the election.
Again.
Yeah, great work, Emily.
Thanks, Dick. That was great.
You guys were awesome.
Em, you're awesome. Thanks for coming on.
No, Emily, thanks for gracing us with your youthful TikTok presence. It was good to be around someone who is still relevant in social media.
Maybe I can get you some youths to find the podcast from the TikTok land.
Yeah.
That would be fantastic. Yeah.
It's like you've worked out my secret plan, Emily. You should go work for Kirk in WA.
Just get him to do a viral TikTok dance.
Man, he just needs help. He's just terrible all around. Sorry, Dick, we didn't get around to talking about how Matthew Guy had had lunch with.
That's all right. We'll save it for next time. That it routinely happens that he has lunch with mobsters and then tries to run for the leadership of the State Liberal Party. If you do it again in a year, the same thing will be happening. So it's no problem.
Thanks a lot, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thanks
See
a
you
lot.
guys.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.